Well, thank you for coming back.
Hvala, da ste prišli nazaj.
Hope you're having some good conversations.
Upam, da ste imeli tudi prijetne pogovore v tem času.
And I presume that whatever you're talking about, you're not having a conflict.
In upam, da o čemerkoli že ste se pogovarjali, niste imeli konflikta glede tega.
Or if you are, you're managing it really well now.
Če pa ste, potem pa, da ste zelo dobro upravljali s tem.
So, and I hope you're a bit awake.
Upam, da ste budni,
Because I want to give you a small task.
kajti želim vam dati eno nalogo, majhno nalogo.
I want you to help Bernie and I with the problem with the potatoes.
Rada bi, da Bernie in meni pomagata pri najnem problemu s krompirjem.
So I want you to, with whoever's near you,
Z nekom, ki je blizu vas,
to come up with some ideas that would help us with our potato problem.
se pogovorite o tem, kaj so nekatere od idej, ki bi nama koristile pri tem najnem problemu.
So what can we do with these huge bags of potatoes
Kaj bi lahko naredili s temi velikimi vrečami krompirja,
when we don't want to eat too many of them?
ki jih ne želimo pojesti, torej vsega.
So work together to make a list of ideas, and they can be as funny and crazy as you like.
Delajte skupaj v parih ali pa 3 osebe skupaj, napišite seznam stvari, ki bi jih lahko naredila. Lahko so to čisto nore stvari, smešne stvari, karkoli.
Because once you've done all the talking and understanding about the situation,
Ker ko enkrat opravite ves pogovor in vse razumevanje o neki situaciji,
and we understand how each other feels
in
and
ko
what each other
razumemo,
needs,
kaj drugi čuti, kako razmišlja,
we still have to solve the problem.
še vedno morate rešiti težavo.
So I want you to spend a few minutes just writing down some ideas.
Torej, nekaj minut, naštejte nekaj idej, kaj bi lahko naredila s tem krompirjem.
We've had all kinds of ideas when we've thrown this out to the group, so hopefully we'll get some
Midva
more.
sva že dobila veliko idej, kadarkoli smo to dali kot nalogo, tako da upam, da še kako novo dobimo.
Okay, so help us solve our problem with
Če
the
imate kako
potatoes.
idejo, že pomagajte nam rešiti ta problem.
What are some of your ideas?
Kaj so vaše ideje? Yeah, just to share it to hungry people.
Give it to hungry people.
Tudi med ostalim razdeliti, narediti krompirjev večer za prijatelje.
To organize a potato evening for a large group of people.
Great, so we could have a potato evening,
Ja, večer krompirja,
feed the homeless
feed the
with
homeless,
soup.
soup, ja. Juha za brezdomce, da ne?
This is a fun one, but with the rest that you have, plan them to have more next year.
That's a good idea,
Torej, posaditi, da bo še več krompirja naslednje leto.
especially as they're already sprouting.
Še posebej zato, ker že kalijo.
But it will give us a year to plan what to do with them.
Ampak če smo v tem, za naslednje leto lahko računate, kaj boste naredili.
And maybe we can sell them for Adra.
Mogoče lahko prodamo to in damo za Adro.
Any other ideas?
Še kakšna ideja? There is one. So to make potato dumplings and freeze them and eat them
freeze
slowly.
them. Eat them slowly, yes. Have a whole freezer full of potato
Torej,
dumplings.
poln zmrzovalnik krompirjevih cmokov. Ja.
Thank you. Any
Hvala.
other
Še kakšna
ideas?
ideja?
This lady?
Ja bi potrgala lice sve
Ja.
I metla u male vrečke I podarila u krug.
Okay. Yeah, she said she would remove all the sprouts and put it in small bags and just distribute to the people.
Give
A
them.
može povedal, da bi on naredil veliko stvari od krompira I musaku I
And the husband said he would cook many different dishes from the potatoes.
Potato chef. You could write a potato cookbook.
Torej, lahko bi napisal kuharsko knjigo o krompirju.
100 ways to eat potatoes.
100 načinov za to, kako pojesti krompir.
Or I hear you saying that you'd like to try yourself in the kitchen.
Ali pa poskusiti kaj, ja.
So suggest that the husband, Bernie, does the cooking? Yes.
Ja, da Bernie kuha. So how many kilos was that potato?
How many kilos?
Ja,
2 massive sacks.
2 ogromne vreče.
No idea.
Ne vem koliko kilo.
And I saw someone over there doing some weightlifting.
Še nekdo je dvigoval teži tam? Ja. Dejan?
Torej, bila smo žena kupila v jesen, kupila nekaj dobila, 200 kg.
We have bought
Torej je
like 200 kilos of potato.
Tam se jema vsak dan.
But we don't eat every day potato.
bomo jedla do spomladi.
But we will eat that till the springtime.
Ker imamo takšne stališče.
But we have a place to store it. And it will repair.
So you're not going to argue about them.
Vi da se ne boste prepirali okrog tega. Okay.
Ne za vodo krompirja, za živali.
Okay.
And we could also give them to a kindergarten for potato printing.
Lahko bi dali krompir tudi kakšnemu vrtcu, da bi naredili pečate iz krompirja, veste, ko dela. Ne?
And I guess this isn't for Adventists, but I think vodka's made out of potatoes.
To ni adventistično, ampak mislim, da tudi vodko delajo iz krompirja.
So we wouldn't be doing that. But
Tega ne bi delala, ampak ja, tudi to je.
so it's good to write down all the ideas you have.
Dobro je si, kadar rešujemo probleme, zapisati vse ideje, ki jih imamo.
And then we can, each of us rates each idea out of 10.
In potem lahko recimo vsak v tem konfliktu oba ocenima te ideje od 1 do 10.
So I might say, I don't like that idea very much, I'll give it a 2.
Recimo, jaz rečem, ta ideja mi ni všeč, tej dam samo 2 točki,
Bernie might like it, he might give it a 7.
ampak Bernie mogoče je, pa bi dal 7 točk.
But we do this for every single idea, however crazy.
Ampak če to narediva za vsako idejo, ne glede na to, kako nora je,
The crazy ideas are good
nore ideje so dobre,
because it makes you laugh.
zato ker se nasmejite ob njih.
And actually when we laugh, we are better at solving
In ko
problems.
se smejimo, lažje rešujemo probleme.
So it's good to have some funny ones there.
Zato je dobro imeti nekaj smešnih idej.
And so we rate every single one and we add up our scores.
Zato ocenimo vsako od idej, seštejemo rezultate
And we see which one gets the most points.
in vidimo, kjer ima največ točk.
But that one doesn't always win
Ampak ne zmaga vedno tista.
because maybe we look at it and we think, you know what, that one got 18
In recimo rečemo, ta je dobila 18 točk,
and that one got 17.
ta pa 17.
But actually if we think about it, 17 would be best.
Ampak če razmislimo o tem, je mogoče tista s 17 točkami boljša.
But that way we collaborate
Ampak na ta način sodelujeva
and we help to solve the problem
in
together.
pomagava, prispeva k rešitvi težave.
We could also compost them, I guess.
Seveda lahko krompir bi tudi kompostirali,
So nothing is wasted.
tako da nič ne
Even
bi
if we
šlo,
do that.
torej v nič. Ne?
And this is funny, but it's a useful way to help people collaborate.
To je lahko torej zabaven način, ki pa pomaga ljudem, da sodelujejo.
And you can use this also in church board situations and other issues.
To lahko uporabite tudi pri cerkvenih odborih, ko rešujete neka vprašanja ali kjerkoli.
Let's put all the ideas down there and see which ones will work
Napišete
best.
vse ideje, vidite, katere so najboljše.
And then think which ones are actually practical, which ones are
In
realistic.
seveda razmišljate o tem, katere od teh idej so praktične, torej se dajo izvesti.
But we've even bought houses like this.
Na ta način lahko kupite tudi hišo.
So we write the houses and we rate them and then we see which one we like the
Napišete, kaj
best.
so opcije, jih ocenite in potem se odločite.
And then we say,
Yeah, just need the money.
yeah, and we say, yeah, we like that one the best, but we can't afford it, so we'll have to have the one that scored 10 and not one that scored
Torej
20.
rečemo, ta nama je najbolj všeč, ampak si je ne moramo privoščiti, torej gremo na nižje, ne, stopnje.
So, but also when we've had an argument, when there's been a conflict,
Ampak ko smo imeli nek konflikt, ko je prišlo do prepira,
there's often things that need to be mended.
pogosto obstajajo stvari, ki jih je treba popraviti, zakrpati.
Particularly if the conflict has been a bit painful or it didn't go so well.
Še posebej, če je bil konflikt boleč, če se ni razvil tako dobro, kot smo želeli.
And it's really important to repair and mend a relationship where there has been a conflict.
In zelo pomembno je popraviti, torej zakrpati odnos tam, kjer je prišlo do konflikta.
And I want you to think, what are some of the things that you do to repair a relationship when there's been a bit of a conflict?
Pomislite malo na to, kaj so stvari, ki jih počnete vi, kadar želite popraviti odnos.
You might want to share what you've seen other people do, just so that you're not sharing anything private.
Mogoče kdo podeli kaj z nami, ampak lahko tudi poveste, kaj ste videli, da drugi počnejo, torej da ne boste preveč osebne stvari govorili.
But how do you make up afterwards? How do you mend?
Kako popravite odnos, ko pride do konflikta?
Any suggestions?
Kakšen predlog, recimo?
Well, I think it's important to reflect on what happened prayerfully with God, just you and God,
Mislim, da je pomembno z molitvijo med sabo in Bogom, torej razmisliti o tem,
And
kaj se je
say-
zgodilo.
you know, in this situation, help me to think what I could have done differently.
In reči Bogu, pomagaj mi razmišljati v tej situaciji, kaj bi jaz lahko naredil drugače.
What could I have done to mend that, make it not so bad in the conflict,
Kaj
or
bi
to
lahko
help it?
naredil, da ne bi prišlo do takšne težave v konfliktu?
How could I have been a better peacemaker?
Kako bi lahko bil boljši mirotvorec?
Are there some issues in my life that I need to look at with you,
Ali
God?
so v mojem življenju neka področja, vprašanja, ki si jih moramo gledati skupaj s teboj?
And ask God to show you where you can grow.
In prosite Boga, da vam pokaže, kje lahko vi rastete.
Then there needs to be an effective apology.
Seveda potem mora biti tudi učinkovito opravičilo.
And I will describe that in a little while.
Kmalu bom to opisala.
And a commitment to learn, to grow and heal together.
In predanost temu, da se učite, rastete skupaj, da skupaj celite rane.
You know, we had that argument.
Imela sva ta spor.
I wonder how we can make it less painful next time or do it better next time.
Kako ga lahko naslednjič narediva manj bolečega ali bolje ravnava?
What did we learn from that we can use again next time?
Kaj sva se naučila iz tega, kar lahko uporabiva naslednjič?
Because it's important to look at what happened and to learn from it if we're going to make a difference.
Ker pomembno si je ogledati, kaj se je zgodilo in se nekaj naučiti iz tega, če hočemo, da je prihodnjič drugače.
And to make a commitment to take care of this relationship.
In da smo predani temu, da poskrbimo za odnos.
What can we do together to look after our relationship?
Kaj bi lahko skupaj naredila, da bi skrbela za odnos?
To make it less likely that we'll have these conflicts.
Kar bi zmanjšalo verjetnost, da se bodo takšni konflikti dogajali.
And going back to earlier, how do we need to be, kinder or more empathic or help each other or show appreciation
In če se
more?
vrnemo na tisto, kar smo govorili prej, kako smo lahko bolj prijazni, bolj empatični, kako smo lahko bolj hvaležni, pokažemo, da cenimo.
How can we find loving and fun ways to strengthen our relationship?
Kako lahko najdemo ljubeče in tudi zabavne načine, da okrepimo naš odnos.
And sometimes we face conflicts that are really complicated.
Včasih se soočite s konflikti, ki so res zapleteni.
And it's really helpful to get some outside perspective on that.
In takrat pomaga pridobiti pogled od zunaj na to.
And particularly a couple or family therapist or someone who's a mediator that can do that.
Še posebej lahko to naredi nekdo, ki je zakonski terapeut.
And then we make a helpful apology.
In potem imamo učinkovito opravičilo.
And this can be really hard.
To je lahko zelo težko.
But I've learned that these words can be really helpful to hear.
Ampak naučila sem se, da je zelo koristno slišati te besede.
I am so sorry that I hurt you by.
Tako mi je žal, da sem te prizadel s tem. Ne?
What I did hurt you badly.
Kar sem naredil, te je prizadelo močno.
I was wrong.
Nisem imel prav.
That's really hard to say.
To je težko reči.
That was wrong. I should not have done that.
Narobe je bilo, da sem to naredil.
And then I don't want to do that again.
Tega ne želim ponoviti.
That's a commitment to improvement.
To je predanost, da bomo nekaj spremenili.
Next time I want to do this instead.
Naslednjič želim namesto tega narediti to.
And hopefully you've heard what the other person's pain was, what they would have liked more, so you know what you want to do that will help them.
Upam, da ste slišali, torej, kaj je bila bolečina druge osebe, tako da se na to odzovete, kako lahko to bolečino zmanjšate.
And then, please forgive me.
In potem prosim, odpusti mi.
And then the other person can receive that apology.
In potem lahko druga oseba seveda sprejme to opravičilo.
And sometimes we can't forgive immediately.
Včasih ne moremo kar odpustiti.
We want to forgive and we're on that journey.
Želimo odpustiti, smo na poti do tega.
But it's going to take a little while for healing to happen.
Ampak nekaj časa je potrebno za celjenje.
So say someone stuck their foot out to trip me up.
Si?
They put their foot out.
Recimo nekdo me spotakne.
and I trip over their foot
padem čez nogo nekoga,
and I break my leg.
si zlomim nogo
And they say, oh, please forgive me.
in ta oseba reče, prosim, oprosti.
And I knew they did it intentionally, so it's kind of hard.
Vem, da je to ta oseba naredila namerno, težko je
But I
zdaj
can
to.
say, yes, I'm working on forgiving you.
In rečem potem, ja, delam na tem, da ti odpustim.
I may even say, yes, I do forgive you.
Lahko tudi rečem, da, odpuščam.
But my leg is still going to hurt.
Ampak moja noga me bo še vedno bolela.
It's still going to take several weeks to heal.
Še vedno bo potrebnih več tednov, da se zaceli.
It may need physiotherapy.
Mogoče bo potrebna fizioterapija.
It may even not be right for the rest of my life.
Mogoče nikoli več ne bo tako, kot bi moralo biti, do konca življenja.
And just because I said, I forgive you, doesn't make that pain go away.
In samo zato, ker rečem, odpuščam ti, to ne pomeni, da bolečina izgine.
So we need to understand that some hurts take a while to heal, even though people want to forgive.
Zato moramo razumeti, da nekatere rane se celijo dlje časa, čeprav ljudje odpustijo.
And then when we put things right, if we need to put things right, ask the other person what they would like us to
In
do.
ko poskušamo stvari popraviti, potem je prav seveda, da drugo osebo vprašamo, kaj si želi, da bi naredili.
Because sometimes when there's a big conflict, there is a pain of some kind.
Ker včasih, ko pride torej do nekega velikega konflikta, je določena vrsta bolečine.
So maybe it's practical help.
Mogoče je potrebna neka praktična pomoč.
Maybe it's some hugs.
Mogoče objem.
Maybe it's treats, chocolate.
Mogoče neke drobne razvade.
Or maybe some flowers, something that just is as an illustration of care.
Nekaj, kar pokaže, recimo, da skrbimo, morda šopek rož ali karkoli.
I've heard that now when children are fighting in the family,
Ko se otroci prepirajo v družini,
rather than punishing them and telling them off,
slišim, da namesto, da jih kaznujemo, da jih okaramo,
we set them down
jih posedemo,
and we say, let each one explain how the situation felt to them,
naj vsak pojasni, kako se je počutil v tej situaciji
and then they do something kind for each
in
other.
potem naredite nekaj prijaznega drug za
Or
drugega.
if one hurt one, then they do something kind.
Ali če je nekdo prizadel drugega, potem ta naredi nekaj
And
prijaznega.
this
tebi.
teaches them how to repair a situation.
In to otroke uči, kako popraviti situacijo.
It develops their empathy for the other one.
Razvije empatijo za drugo osebo
And the kinder we are, then the less likely we will have
in
battles.
prijaznejši kot smo, manj verjetnost je, da se bomo prepirali.
There's even, in Scotland, there's even a program for teaching 8-year-olds to solve their conflicts or help other 8-year-olds solve their conflicts.
Na Škotskem obstaja en program, kjer se 8-letnike poučuje o tem, kako razreševati konflikte ali pomagati drugim, da jih
And
razrešijo.
from the age of 8, they are teaching children how to manage conflicts better.
In torej od starosti 8 let naprej učijo otroke, kako bolje upravljati s konflikti.
And children help other children solve their conflicts.
Potem otroci pomagajo drugim otrokom reševati njihove konflikte.
And it's part of creating a future society where there will be less conflict eventually.
In to je del ustvarjanja družbe, v kateri bo manj konfliktov.
And I'm hoping to get some training so we can start doing that within churches.
Upam, da bom sama dobila trening na tem področju, tako da bomo lahko nekaj podobnega začeli tudi v cerkvah.
And I heard a teenager speak who'd been through this training process.
Slišala sem enega najstnika, ki je šel skozi ta proces usposabljanja.
And it's fun, they do all kinds of games together.
Zabavno je, ker igrajo se različne igre.
And he said, it's been brilliant.
In ta najstnik je rekel, bilo je enkrat.
He said, as a teenager, I rarely have a conflict with my parents now
Pravi, kot najstnik imam zdaj redko konflikte s svojimi starši.
because I understand conflict and I know better how to express my needs.
Ker razumem konflikt in vem, kako bolje izraziti svoje potrebe.
He says, I even help my mum and dad sort out their conflicts.
Včasih pomagam mami in očetu, da ona dva razrešita svoje konflikte.
So the more people who know how to understand and resolve conflicts, the better society we have.
Več ljudi, ko ve, kako razumeti konflikt, kako ga razrešiti, boljše okolje bomo ustvarili.
And you're part of that now because you're learning things that you
And-
can use.
Seveda vi ste tudi sedaj del tega, ker se učite o teh stvarih, ki jih lahko uporabite.
Actually, well-managed conflicts bring us closer together.
Konflikti, v katerih ravnamo pravilno, nas zbližujejo.
That's the goal.
To je cilj.
So when you see a conflict coming,
Ko vidite, da prihaja konflikt,
Think, how can this help us understand each other and come closer?
Razmislite o tem, kako nam lahko to pomaga, da se razumemo bolje in pridemo bliže.
That's not usually the first thing that comes into our head.
To ni običajno prva misel, ki nam pride v naše možgane,
But when that becomes our goal, then it's much more healthy.
ampak ko to postane naš cilj, je vse skupaj veliko bolj zdravo.
How can this conflict help us have a better relationship
Kako nama lahko ta konflikt pomaga, da bo najin odnos boljši?
and bring us together rather than push us apart?
Nas bliža, namesto da bi nas naj oddaljilo.
And also, as we listen and learn from each other, what each other likes, what will help each other,
Ko poslušamo drug drugega, ko slišimo, kaj druga oseba potrebuje ali je všeč,
and we put them into action,
in to udejanimo,
then we feel more cared for.
potem se čutimo bolj ljubljene,
And the more careful we feel, the less you will argue.
in bolj ljubljene, kot se počutimo, manj se bomo prepirali.
And so remember that the more you invest in the relationship, the less you will have conflicts.
In zapomnimo si to, da več kot vložimo v odnos, manj bomo imeli konfliktov.
But there are unresolvable conflicts.
So pa tudi nerazrešljivi konflikti.
You know, we do our best to manage some everyday things that happen,
Trudimo se na najboljši možni način ravnati s stvarmi, ki se nam dogaja.
but what if one person wants to live in America and one person wants to live in Slovenia?
Ampak kaj če ena oseba, recimo par zakonci bi živel, en bi živel v Ameriki, drugi pa v Sloveniji.
It's kind of difficult to compromise, right?
Težko je najti kompromis.
As you find a little island in the middle of the Atlantic
Razen če najdete mali otok sredi Atlantika,
where neither of you want to live.
kjer noben od vaju ne želi živeti.
So you have to live in one place or
Torej
the
morate
other.
živeti ali tu ali tam.
And there's other situations where there is a problem that cannot be fixed and you have to live with it.
In seveda so situacije, v katerih je težava, ki se ne da razrešiti in z njo morate živeti.
And then the most important thing to do is be compassionate for whoever is being hurt most by the situation.
In najpomembnejša stvar v takšni situaciji je, da smo sočutni do osebe, ki je bila zaradi tega najbolj prizadeta.
So you might decide, okay, we'll live in America
Mogoče boste rekli, ok, bomo živeli v Ameriki,
and we'll set aside this much saving a year so we can go back to Slovenia twice a year, whatever.
ampak toliko bomo vsako leto dali na stran, da bomo lahko 2-krat na leto prišli v Slovenijo.
Or maybe we'll have relatives come and stay with us for a few
Ali
months.
pa da pridejo sorodniki k nama, ostanejo pri nas.
So find a way that will be kindest to the one who is most bearing the weight of the problem.
Poiščite način, ki bo prijazen do tistega, ki mora nositi večje breme v takej situaciji.
It can also happen, say, when you have a relative you need to care for full time.
Prav tako se to lahko zgodi v situacijah, ko imate recimo sorodnika, za katerega je potrebno skrbeti ves čas.
And how will you take care of the person who's carrying most of the burden for that?
Kako boste vi poskrbeli za osebo, ki nosi največje breme, recimo te skrbi?
So we'll just skip that one for now. So maybe just think for a moment about what you've learned so far about interpersonal conflict.
Razmišljajte nekaj trenutkov o tem, kaj ste se do zdaj naučili o medosebnih konfliktih.
And share with a partner just one of the tips you want to try.
In podelite z osebo, ki sedi poleg vas, eno stvar, ki jo želite poizkusiti.
Or one thing that's been most interesting to
Ali pa
you.
eno stvar, ki je bila za vas najbolj zanimiva.
So just share what you're
Samo
taking
podelite
away.
eno stvar, ki jo boste naredili ali pa se vam zdi najbolj zanimiva iz te tematike. Z osebo, ki sedi poleg vas.
We'll have some time at the end for some questions to...
Na koncu bomo pustili še nekaj časa za kakšno vprašanje in komentarje.
And I don't expect you to remember all of this,
Ne pričakujem, da si boste zapomnili vse.
but if as you see a conflict coming, you can try one idea and see what happens.
Ampak če lahko, ko vidite, da konflikt prihaja, najdete eno idejo, eno stvar in jo uporabite.
Or if you can think for yourself of a conflict in your life that worked out well,
Ali pa če lahko pomislite na konflikt v svojem življenju, ki se dobro razreši.
and think, what did I do? What did we do together that helped that to work out so well?
Pomislite na to, kaj sem naredil, kaj sva naredila v tej situaciji, da je to delovalo.
Because we were able to talk about it that time and none of us got angry.
O tem sva se lahko pogovarjala, pa se nihče ni razjezil.
what did we do and what can we learn from that?
Kaj sva naredila in kaj se lahko tega naučimo?
I'm now going to talk a bit about group conflicts.
Zdaj bom malo govorila o skupinskih konfliktih ali konfliktih v skupinah.
As when I did this for another country and they wanted to know also about how to work with group conflicts. So I'll share that too.
To bom podelila z vami, kar sem pripravila za neko drugo situacijo, ker so želeli nekaj o tej temi.
And the challenge with group conflicts is we have all of these issues, but more people
Težava s
experiencing things.
konflikti v skupinah je, da imamo vse te probleme, o katerih smo govorili, samo da je vključenih še več ljudi.
So there's more ideas, more issues, more emotions,
Še več idej, še več vprašanj, še več čustev.
more people to listen to,
Več ljudi, ki jim je treba prisluhniti.
and it just gets more complex.
In zato stvar postane bolj kompleksna.
So these are some of the challenges with group conflicts.
To so nekateri od izzivov s konflikti v skupinah.
It's polarization.
Polarizacija,
We kind of go to like opposite ways.
gremo nasprotne smeri,
Or conflicts of ideology.
ali pa konflikti glede ideologije, torej prepričanj.
We may even have similar values, but we just see them differently.
Morda imamo zelo podobne vrednote, samo jih vidimo drugače.
Then we often focus, as we do with individuals, on our differences rather than the way we're the same.
Potem se, kot v primeru, ko gre za medosebne konflikte, osredotočimo na te razlike, namesto na podobnosti.
Or we can decide on, we make assumptions about what the other group wants or thinks.
Ali pa preprosto predvidevamo, domnevamo, kaj druga skupina želi ali misli.
Or they're part of that group, they must believe this.
Ali pa, aha, ti so del te skupine, torej morajo misliti to.
And maybe they don't. We need to communicate, but often we don't when we're polarized.
Mogoče pa ne in zato moramo komunicirati, kadar pride do te delitve.
And there are sometimes strong personalities in the groups.
Včasih imamo v teh skupinah močne osebnosti
And I've been dealing with one of these conflicts somewhere in the division.
in jaz sem imela opravka z enim takšnim konfliktom nekje v diviziji naši,
Well, the biggest spokesperson has clearly come from a very hurt background.
kjer je tisti, ki je najbolj glasno govoril, očitno prihajajo iz zelo težkega ozadja, zgodovinsko gledano.
So sometimes the loudest shouter is very hurt.
Včasih je tisti, ki je najglasnejši, najbolj prizadet, najbolj ranjen.
And what they really need is some healing inside for their pain.
In kar ta oseba potrebuje, je najprej zdravljenje v notranjosti za to bolečino.
And when there's group conflicts, there's so many different needs within each group and hopes that people have.
In kadar pride do konflikta v skupinah, je seveda toliko različnih potreb, kaj ljudje vse potrebujejo.
So it's really challenging when there's a group conflict.
Zato so takšni konflikti velik izziv.
And when I've dealt with group conflicts in churches, it's really important to set some ground rules.
In ko imamo pravka z konflikti, skupinskimi konflikti, recimo v cerkvah, je zelo pomembno vzpostaviti pravila,
How will we treat each other?
kako bomo ravnali drug z drugim.
Maybe look at Romans 12
Mogoče pogledati Rimljanom 12. poglavje
and remind people about, Christian behavior, respect, speaking gently, etc.
in spomniti ljudi na krščansko vedenje, na spoštovanje, na prijazno pogovarjanje.
And decide on how you're going to manage it so that each group agrees on how the process will be.
In odločimo se o tem, kako bomo ravnali, s čimer se mora strinjati seveda vsaka skupina, proces.
I have 2 big flip charts.
Imam dva velika lista papirja.
And first of all, I get each side to think what the other side wants, what they think the other people's issues are.
In pa najprej začnem recimo s tem, da vsaka od teh strani razmišlja o tem, kaj mislijo, da druga stran misli.
And what they think the other group is hoping for.
In da razmišlja o tem, kaj mislijo, da drugi si želijo doseči, oziroma na kaj upajo.
This is part of developing a kind of empathy understanding between them.
To je del tega, ko poskušamo razviti empatično razumevanje med ljudmi.
And then I get them to write down what their hopes and needs are.
In potem napiše vsaka skupina, kaj so njihove želje, upanja in potrebe.
And then we can look at them all together.
Potem lahko na vse to pogledamo skupaj.
Quite often they're very similar.
pogosto gre za zelo podobne stvari.
What they both want can be similar, but they may want it in different ways.
Kar si tako eni kot drugi želijo, lahko zelo podobno, ampak želijo si to na različen način.
And then we'll find someone who can be a good spokesperson for each group.
Potem bomo poiskali nekoga, ki je lahko dober predstavnik vsake skupine.
I may even give them that in this situation, when this happens, we feel.
Lahko jim damo torej, tisti vzorec, kot smo rekli, v teh okoliščinah, ko se to zgodi, čutimo to.
And help them to be really clear and kind about what they say.
In pomagamo pri tem, da so zelo jasni in tudi zelo prijazni glede tega, kar je rečeno.
If possible, have them write it down and check with them that it's not offensive.
Če je možno, naj se to zapiše in treba je preveriti, da to ni žaljivo.
So they're presenting it respectfully.
Da se poda, predstavi na spoštljiv način.
And then encouraging the other group to listen to that.
In potem spodbuditi drugo skupino, da o tem posluša to.
And kind of sum up what they've heard as you would have done as individuals.
In povzame to, kar je slišala, tako kot smo prej delali kot posamezniki.
And then if they want to ask questions, make sure they write them down so that they don't become too emotional and critical in the way that they present questions.
In če želijo potem zastaviti vprašanja, je treba vprašanja zapisati, tako da ne postanejo ljudje preveč emocionalni glede tega.
So you try and help build understanding without adding fuel, emotional fuel to the
Torej
fire.
poskušate graditi razumevanje, ne da bi dodajali, prilivali olja na ogenj.
And then I may do some value merging.
Potem včasih opravim nekaj, kar se imenuje združevanje vrednot.
And this is an interesting thing to try in a church group.
To je zanimiva stvar, ki jo lahko poskusimo v cerkveni skupini.
So I would get each of you, and you can draw this on your paper if you like,
Recimo to lahko si tudi narišete na svojem papirju, če želite.
to write your values in a triangle.
Rekla bi vam, da napišete svoje vrednote v obliki trikotnika.
So you put your highest value in the top triangle,
Vaša najvišja vrednota je v zgornjem trikotniku,
and maybe your, a second row of values on the next row,
potem
three,
imamo druge po pomembnosti 3 vrednote, ki so v sredini,
and then your 5 on the third row.
in vaših 5 nadaljnih vrednot v zadnji, spodnji vrsti.
So you think about your values and you rate them,
Razmišljate torej o svojih vrednotah in jih ocenjujete.
and you can find many lists of values on the internet if you're not quite sure what to
In na
use.
internetu boste našli veliko seznamov vrednot, če niste ravno prepričani, kako jih opredeliti.
It can be like love, kindness, respect,
Vrednote kot so ljubezen, prijaznost, spoštovanje,
listening.
poslušanje.
And then you meet with somebody else
In potem se srečate z nekom drugim
and you have to try and put your two sets of values together, make a new triangle.
in potem poskušate ta dva niza vrednot združiti v nov trikotnik.
And talk about how you would do that.
In se pogovarjate o tem, kako boste to naredili.
And then you two would be put with another two
In potem se vi dva srečate z drugima dvema
and make another one for 4 of you.
in naredite novo stvar za vas 4.
And I've done this with a group until the group together comes up with a shared value pyramid.
In to sem naredila za skupine, dokler celotna skupina torej ni imela teh skupnih, deljenih vrednot.
And then you have the shared core values for this whole group.
In potem imate deljene vrednote za celo skupino.
And you may do this within each group separately to begin with.
In na začetku seveda to naredite za vsako skupino posebej.
And then see how quite often those will be very similar.
In potem vidite, kako pogosto se te stvari skladajo.
And say, if these are our values, how do we live them out in this situation?
In takrat lahko rečete, če so to naše vrednote, kako bomo te stvari živeli v tej situaciji.
So when there are group conflicts, it is very complex. It can take some careful work.
Kadar pride do konfliktov v skupinah, je to lahko zelo kompleksno in zahteva veliko dela.
So an ideal is we look for the common ground first. How are we the same?
In ideja je seveda v tem, da najprej iščemo stične točke, torej v čem smo si podobni.
And then show empathy and understanding for each other's position.
Potem pokažemo razumevanje, empatijo za stališča drugega.
And even when people believe they're being rational, they're often operating from an emotional
In
response.
čeprav ljudje so prepričani, da so zelo racionalni, je dejstvo, da najprej delujejo iz emocionalnega vidika, torej odziv je najprej emocionalni.
And we're actually wired to believe that our group is more right than the other group.
In nekako smo narejeni tako, da smo prepričani, da ima naša skupina bolj prav kot druga skupina.
And how can we understand that we're both right in different ways, and how can we build something
Zato
together?
iščemo pot in način, kako lahko razumemo, da imamo oboji prav, mogoče na različen način.
So it's helpful to encourage biblical principles for healthy relationships together.
Zelo pomembno je, da spodbudimo uporabo svetopisemskih načel za zdrave odnose.
To go back to Romans 12,
Gremo nazaj na Rimljanom 12. poglavje.
how can we all be part of God's body, of this body?
Kako smo lahko vsi del Božjega telesa, tega telesa.
We're all created differently, that's normal.
Vsi smo ustvarjeni drugače, različni smo in to je
We-
normalno.
We all have spiritual gifts.
Vsi imamo duhovne darove.
How can we build healthy relationships?
Kako lahko gradimo zdrave odnose?
And how can we even agree to disagree?
In kako se lahko strinjamo, da se ne bomo strinjali?
That we can co-live with people who have different ideas to us.
Kjer lahko preprosto živimo, sobivamo z ljudmi, ki imajo drugačne ideje, kot jih imamo.
And say that's okay that you think differently to me.
In rečemo, to je okej, da misliš drugače o tem. kot
Let
jaz.
that not stop us working together for the good.
Naj nama to ne prepreči, da bi sodelovala za doseganje nečesa dobrega.
It's not easy,
Ni enostavno to.
but this is work that we might need to think about at some time.
Ampak to je področje, o katerem velja razmišljati.
It has been helpful in some cases to have a shared project which brings people together.
V nekaterih primerih je dobro imeti nek skupen projekt, ki združuje ljudi.
And I've seen some groups that were fractured come together to create a mission, a blessing to their
In
community.
videla sem nekatere skupine, ki so bile razdeljene, kako so prišle torej skupaj in ustvarjali neko poslanstvo, misijo za skupnost.
And as they work together, they get to know each other. They see each other as human
In
beings.
ko delajo skupaj, spoznavajo drug drugega, vidijo drug drugega kot človeška bitja.
So again, this isn't easy when groups have fractured, but we
Še
can
enkrat,
try to do
to
some work to
ni
bring them back.
enostavno, ko je skupina razdrobljena, ampak je pot.
So when we agree to disagree, one is building understanding that we need to do this, agree to disagree and move on.
Ko se torej strinjamo, da se ne bomo glede nečesa strinjali, potem je prva stvar ta, oziroma to, kar moramo narediti, je, da izgradimo to razumevanje, da se s tem strinjamo, da je to od tukaj gremo naprej.
Or they decide, you know what, we're not going to change the other.
In preprosto pridemo do točke, ko se rečemo, ne bomo spremenili drugih,
So it's pointless trying to expend effort trying to change the other
zato
person.
je nesmiselno vlagati veliko truda v to, da poskusimo drugega spremeniti.
And I guess in a marriage we accept that there's differences.
In v zakonu sprejmemo, da so razlike,
There's things that we're probably not going to change with each other.
da so stvari, ki jih ne bomo spremenili pri drugem.
And trying to change those things usually makes it worse.
In če jih poskušamo spreminjati, to vse skupaj še poslabša.
So let's find a way
Zato
to work together.
najdimo način, kako bomo sodelovali.
And everyone has things that are difficult to change or don't need to be changed because we're just different.
Vsakdo ima stvari, ki so drugačne, različne, stvari, ki jih ne rabimo spremeniti in se ne bodo spremenile.
And it's not our job to change the other.
In ni naša naloga, da spreminjamo drugega,
It's the work of the Holy Spirit.
ampak delo Svetega Duha.
And when we try to change other people, it tends to go wrong.
In kadar mi poskušamo spreminjati druge, se zagotovo zalomi.
Or groups can decide we're just going to coexist with our differences,
Skupine se lahko odločijo, mi bomo sobivali z našimi razlikami.
or they draw up some guidelines saying, okay, we are different. This is how we're going to work together so we can live peacefully with our differences.
Ali pa preprosto spostavijo neka pravila, ki povedo, tako bomo ravnali, tako bomo delovali, da bomo lahko v miru živeli z našimi razlikami.
But sometimes we actually need to get in, even within the church, professional mediators and leaders who can help us do that.
Včasih tudi v cerkvenem kontekstu potrebujemo poklicne mediatorje, ki nam pomagajo razrešiti stvari.
And we're trying to develop teams that can help with local conflicts.
In poskušamo oblikovati ekipe ljudi, ki lahko pomagajo pri lokalnih konfliktih.
There's a very good book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
Obstaja zelo dobra knjiga, Pravični avtorja Jonathana Haidta.
It has a really good subtitle, something like why good people fight about things that are
Ima
right.
dober podnaslov, nekaj v stilu tega, zakaj se dobri ljudje prepirajo.
And it's a very interesting book,
Zelo zanimiva knjiga.
particularly if you're in a conflict situation where people are fighting
Še posebej, če ste v konfliktni situaciji, torej, kjer se ljudje prepirajo.
and they both feel they're right.
In kjer obe strani mislite, da imate prav.
And at the end, he has this lovely quote.
In na koncu te knjige ima ta navedek.
He says, the next time you find yourself sitting next to someone from another matrix, another way of thinking,
Ko se boste naslednjič znašli poleg nekoga, ki prihaja iz drugega zornega kota, drugačnega načina razmišljanja,
give this a try.
poskusite to.
Don't just jump right in.
Ne skočiti na glavo v situacijo,
Don't bring up morality until you have found a few ways in which you're similar.
da ne začnite moralizirati, dokler ne najdete nekoliko točk, v katerih ste si podobni,
And found some trust.
in izgradite zaupanje.
And when you do bring up issues,
In ko omenite vprašanja,
start with some praise
začnite s pohvalo
or a sincere expression of interest.
ali z iskrenim izrazom zanimanja.
And I love this last thing.
In všeč mi je ta zadnja stvar.
We're all stuck here for a while,
Vsi smo ujeti tukaj za nekaj časa,
so let's try to work it out.
zato poskušajmo urediti stvari oziroma živeti s tem.
Don't let's be fighting together.
Torej, ne prepiramo se.
God has a better way for us to use that energy.
Bog ima boljši način, kako lahko uporabimo svojo energijo.
So, I want you to think again what you're taking away from this seminar.
Rada bi, da še enkrat razmislite o tem, kaj odnašate s seboj iz tega seminarja,
Apart from a slice of pizza,
poleg pice, ki sledi.
that's going to make a difference to your life.
Nekaj, kar bo pomenilo razliko v vašem življenju.
So think about what that is.
Razmislite malo o tem, kaj je to.
Because if you just come and listen and it doesn't change anything,
Ker če samo pridete, slišite in se nič ne spremeni,
that would be a shame.
potem bi bilo škoda.
Because we're called to be peacemakers.
Zato, ker smo poklicani, da delamo za mir.
And peace starts with each one of us.
In mir se začne pri vsakem od nas.
I remember at our wedding we had this song, Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me.
Torej, obstaja misel, naj bo mir na zemlji, naj se ta mir začne pri meni.
It's a pretty idealistic thing to sing at your wedding, but that's when you're idealistic.
Precej idealistična stvar, ker je to misel iz pesmi, ki se poje na poroki, ampak tako je.
A funny thing was that Bernie and I got married. He proposed after 1 month.
Z Bernijem sva se poročila, Berni me je dejansko zaprosil po mesecu dni.
By a miracle, I said yes.
Po nekem čudežu sem rekla da.
We were married a very short time after that
Poročila sva se zelo hitro zatem,
because Bernie was going to Andrews University.
ker Berni odhaja na Andrews
And I had to choose, would I go with him for a year or stay behind?
in morala sem se odločiti, ali grem z njim za 1 leto ali ostanem.
I thought, I'm not going to set him free with all those beautiful American women.
Pravi, ne bom ga pustila svobodnega z vsemi temi
I'll go with him and keep an eye on
lepimi
him.
ženskami v Ameriki, jaz grem z njim.
And his very first class, we were just married like a couple of weeks.
Midva sva bila poročena približno 2 tedna
And he had a class in marriage and family.
in njegov prvi predmet je bil zakon in družina.
And we had to spend a weekend in a marriage retreat.
In morala sva preživeti en vikend za zakonce,
And that was really good for us
na dogodku, ki je bil zelo dober za nas.
because our premarital went something like this.
Ker najno predzakonsko svetovanje je bilo približno tako.
Well, you're both from good Adventist families, you'll be fine.
Vidva sta oba iz dobrih adventističnih družin, vse bo okej.
So we went to this wedding, this marriage seminar.
Šla smo na ta seminar za zakonce
I'm like, there was this seminar on conflict.
in to je bil del seminarja, bil seminar o konfliktih.
And all these other couples were like, they've been married for years. They were just in deep conflict.
In pari, ki so bili poročeni leta in so bili v konfliktu.
I thought, this is hilarious.
In smo rekli, to je smešno.
We're never going to be like them.
Mi dva nikoli ne bomo kot so oni.
Yeah, we learned.
Seveda smo se naučila.
And we had to go back to all those notes and read them again.
In smo se morala vrniti na vse
So-
tiste zapiske in jih še enkrat prebrati.
Anyway, So there's also some really useful resources.
Obstaja nekaj koristnih virov.
If you speak English, then Scottish conflict resolution, this website is really good.
Če govorite angleško, potem je ta spletna stran, se pravi škotska stran za razreševanje konfliktov, zelo dobra.
They're run by a Christian organization in Scotland called the Cyrenians.
Vodijo ena krščanska organizacija na Škotskem.
And I trained for them and I learnt from them.
In jaz sem jih usposabljala in se učila od njih.
And I blended that into this seminar.
In veliko teh spoznanj sem vključila tudi v ta seminar.
And they have a really, they mostly work with teenagers and families to help them not conflict with each other.
Večinoma delajo z najstniki in z družinami.
Because 5,000 young people a year become homeless in Scotland because they fall out with their families.
Ker na Škotskem 5,000 mladih vsako leto postanejo brezdomci, ker pride do takšnih konfliktov v družinah.
And so they're teaching young people about managing conflict.
Zato jih učijo, kako ravnati v konfliktih.
And they have this very good quiz you can do on your phone.
Imajo zelo dober kviz, ki ga lahko pravite tudi na
If
telefonu,
you go to their website,
če greste na njihovo spletno stran.
and it's called Keep the Heed. Keep,
Keep
it's Scottish.
Yeah, Scottish.
Means keep your head.
In ohranite trezno glavo, bi rekla.
And you can put in there how you deal with your conflicts,
V ta kviz pišete, kako ravnate v konfliktnih situacijah,
and it will give you a circus character.
in to vam da en profil.
And it will tell you how you deal with your conflict like this circus character.
Profil ene cirkuške osebnosti in potem vam opiše, kako ravnate torej v konfliktnih
And what you
situacijah.
might need to do to balance your way of dealing
In
with
kaj
conflict.
bi morda morali narediti, da vse to spravite v neko ravnovesje.
So, for example, there's a trapeze artist who's trying to keep everyone balanced.
Zato tako recimo imate artista na trapezu, ki poskuša ohranjati ravnotežje,
Or there's a lion tamer who's trying to calm down
ali
something
pa
big.
krotilca levov, ki poskuša vse utišati.
One of them is
umiriti.
is a human cannonball. I'll let you think what that is for yourself.
Eden od likov je človeška topovska krogla,
And one is a clown who just makes jokes, but actually they're hurting inside.
drugi je spet klavn, ki zabava vse, a v sebi nosi bolečino.
It's a nice thing to do with young people to help them understand their conflict style.
Zelo dobra stvar, ki jo lahko naredite z mladimi, da razumejo svoj stil reševanja konfliktov.
And if you're a couple, that speaks English, there's a really good app called Toucan Together.
Če ste par, lahko imate eno zelo dobro aplikacijo.
And it's done by Christians,
Spet iz krščanskih krogov prihaja.
by some friends of ours.
Najni prijatelji so za tem.
And it's like a free marriage seminar in the palm of your hand.
In gre za brezplačen seminar o zakonu, ki je dejansko na dlani vaše roke.
It's really brilliant.
Res izjemna stvar.
And all the couples you see in videos are Christians. I've met them.
Vsi pari, ki jih boste videli v videoposnetkih, so kristjani, jaz sem se srečala z njimi.
And one person signs up to the app and then invites their partner.
Ena oseba se prijavi v aplikacijo in potem povabi svojega partnerja.
And they even had to develop a really complex infrastructure on the web that they can have two people interact.
Razvili so res kompleksno infrastrukturo, tako da prihaja do teh komunikacij, ki so potrebne.
And they invested hundreds of thousands of pounds in it.
Na 100,000 funtov je bilo investirano v cel projekt.
And it's fun. It has little tiny things you watch or do on your own, and then you come and meet your partner and talk about it.
In imate stvari, ki jih gledate ali naredite in potem se s svojim partnerjem pogovarjate o tem.
And it has really good modules on communication, conflict, and other topics.
Zelo dobri moduli o komunikaciji, konfliktih in drugih tematikah.
Some of the ideas in the conflict section have come from my conversations with them.
In nekatere od idej v tej sekciji konfliktov so iz mojih pogovorov z njimi.
So here's some extra resources for you.
Torej, to je še nekaj dodatnih virov.